So in this video, we're going to put our divisibility rules to use. So it's going to be helpful that we remember some of our divisibility rules. We'll say for 2, for 3, for 5, for 6, for 9, and for 10. At the very least, I think that's a good working list for us to use for knowing our divisibility rules for solving for GCF, which stands for greatest common factor. And for LCM, which you should remember as meaning the least common multiple. So don't forget, we have some vocabulary here that we just want to make sure we know. We know a factor is a number that fits into other numbers. A multiple is what other numbers fit into. So for example, factors of 10 are 1, 2, 5, and 10. Because I know 1 times 10 equals 10, I know 2 times 5 equals 10. Whereas multiples of 10 would be 10 because it's 10 times 1, and 20 because 10 times 2, 30, 10 times 3, and so on and so forth. So there's an endless list of multiples, but there is a finite or defined list of factors. So we're going to review now what's called either the ladder or the cake method. And what's nice is this method can be used to find both the GCF and the LCM. So as a quick review, I'm going to start by writing my two numbers down that I'm going to find the GCF and the LCM of. And I'm going to put essentially an upside down long division house. And all I care about doing now is thinking of any number that fits into both 32 and 48, any number that is a factor. Now, some of you might say 2 because they're even. I'm going to go a little bit bigger than that. I'm going to say 4. And neither of us would be wrong. If you said 2, you would divide these two numbers by 2. Since I'm saying 4, I'm going to divide first 32 by 4, which is 8. And then I am going to divide 48 by 4, which I know is 12. And as long as it looks like I have a common factor I can still pull out again, I create this process. So I create another layer of my ladder or another layer of my cake, and I factor out another number. Well, once again, you can see that these numbers are even, so maybe you factor out a 2. I'm going to see that there's a 4 that can be factored out, and I know that 8 divided by 4 is 2. 12 divided by 4 is 3. When I get to this point where I know the only other common factor that's shared between the two numbers is 1, I know I am done. So at this point, I just need to make use of the two numbers. So if you recall, the greatest common factor, and you've seen this before, I'm almost certain, if you recall, and the greatest common factor is just simply made up of multiplying these two numbers by each other. So in this case, the GCF would be equal to 4 times 4, which is 16, which says that 16 is the largest number that will go evenly into 32 and 48. Now, if you had other numbers down the side here, it would still just be made up of all of those numbers multiplied together that just run down the left-hand side, and they would still equal 16. To get the LCM, the least common multiple, we put what almost looks like a big L around all those numbers. So this time I'm going to calculate everything that's inside my red L or my red sock. So I'm going to do 4 times 4 times 3 times 2. So I know my 4 times 4 was already 16 times 2 is going to give me 32, and then times 3 more, that's going to give me 96. So what that tells me is that the smallest number that 32 and 48 go into will be 96. So one more time, you pull out any common factor that you know, and you divide out your numbers, and you create a new row, and you continue doing that till you get to the bottom where the only common factor of the bottom two numbers is 1. From there, you multiply the numbers that you factored out going down the side only, as your greatest common factor, and those numbers that make up the entire L or the entire SOC as your LCM. That being said, I would like you to do the next one on your own, and we will discuss when we meet in class again.